Hello and welcome back to ShameOver. I am so glad you're here to join us on another episode. Today we are going to be really focusing on how you can explore a balanced relationship with alcohol. What does that look like? What does that even mean to you? And is that possible? The big part, so basically why ShameOver is here is I myself was drinking more than I liked, and everything that I was finding out there, this was basically during COVID, which I know a lot of you might be in the same boat as I was. Everything that I was finding online was basically, if you're looking up how to drink less, you're an alcoholic, you should never drink again. And every program out there, every option that I found was about sobriety. Some of them even said that they weren't about sobriety, and as soon as you got in, full on sobriety. I'm not here to shame or bash or do anything with those. There is room for all of us here, but more than anything, I just want everyone to understand there are options out there outside of full sobriety. Yes, I will be the first to admit moderation is not for everyone. Moderation is not possible for every person, no matter how hard you work on it. Some things there's people who just don't need alcohol in their life or other things in their life. And that is okay. That is not a bad thing at all. There are also some of us who will never have a problem with alcohol or consumption of other things. Okay, great. There's a bunch of us that are kind of in that gray area spot where sometimes drinking can be problematic, and not in the I'm going to get a DUI or my relationships are becoming an issue, but more in the sense that we are starting to question ourselves. Are we drinking more than we want? Do I need to drink less? Should I try stopping drinking? Do I even want that? As you're starting to ask yourself these questions, in my mind, that's nothing but a good thing. It means you are looking for growth, looking for opportunities to get to know yourself better or on a deeper level, and these are all great things. So the number one thing I want you to understand here is moderation is a viable option for many. Again, not everyone, but for most of us, it is. I am a very, very firm believer that we know deep down in our heart and our soul if moderation is possible for us. It's a matter of if we're listening and actually hearing what our body, what our mind is trying to tell us. A lot of times, it doesn't tell us what we want it to, so we're just like, no, not going to go with that. That is something that you're going to have to figure out yourself. You're going to have to do an ego check, all of that stuff. That is not what this episode is about. This is all about understanding that there are plenty of options out there, from full-on sobriety to full-on moderation, and realizing that moderation and balance is doable and imperative in pretty much every area of your life. So, as we get into this is a personal choice. Like I said, I think deep down you know if you can moderate or not. Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to easily moderate tomorrow if you've not been doing so at least very well recently, but you ultimately know, is this something that I can do? Have I been able to in the past? Some people, from the second they start drinking, it is never moderation. It is never a glass or two of wine. For others, it kind of builds up to that. So again, where are you in this spectrum? What does that look like to you and for you? I am very big on, if you do nothing else, what does moderation mean to you and what does it look like? Yes, you can go look up the guidelines. There are so many different guidelines out there. Most will say, at least for women, 7 to 10 drinks a week max. That's a 5-ounce glass of wine. That's, you can go up and look 1.5 ounces of liquor, straight alcohol. The beer can be very different now that with all the craft beers typically have a higher alcohol content than others. 7 to 10 drinks per week for women, which most of you guys here are women. For men, it's typically that 10 up. I've seen 10 as high as like 14, but it is typically no more than 2 drinks in a day. And pretty much every expert out there will tell you no drinking is better than drinking at all. So again, I'm not here to tell you anything besides in my heart of hearts, I truly believe that you know what is best for you and it is your decision to make. If you are only having other people tell you what to do, you're fighting it, there's a lot of shame coming out with that. All I've seen is that does not work long term. Plain and simple. When you're doing something for you, when you know deep down it is right for you, it is best for you, it is doable, that is when I've seen the long-term success. So with that, take a minute, whether it's pausing this now or after we're done with this, take time and understand what moderation looks like to you. Get very specific and know exactly what that means. Maybe it's a certain number of drinks per day, per week, per month, per year. Maybe it's never going over X amount. Maybe it's being a take it or leave it drinker, where you're not really thinking about it very much. When the opportunity presents itself, you can easily say yes or no. You don't need it for any situation. All of these different factors come into play. This is personal. This needs to be something that sounds realistic to you, that you can, you might not be there today, you might not be there tomorrow, or even a week or a month from now, but it is possible if you work on it. And that is another thing we need to understand, and I feel like this can be very hard for a lot of us because it's just like, well, it's drinking, like this should be different than everything else, but it is just like every other area of our life that whatever we practice, we get good at. And it is something that we are always going to dedicate some attention to in one way or another. If you are full on sober, if that's the path that you choose, that's amazing. I celebrate that. That is a beautiful decision. There are going to be other areas that this might fall into. We typically all drink for emotional reasons, whether we're sad, happy, bored, whatever that is. If you are choosing the sobriety path, you are still going to have all these emotions and everything come up. So understanding how you deal with these without alcohol is going to be huge. If you're drinking, you still need to know how to deal with all these situations, deal with the highs, the lows, the big, happy, wonderful feelings, the really dark, low, yucky feelings. These are going to be a part of life. And that is why I think for so many of us, this can be hard, that it feels like, okay, last week was easy, but this week is tough again. Why is that? It is so normal. It's because look at where you are. If maybe you've been working out your whole life, maybe you just started getting into it. You go through ebbs and flows where it feels good one day, the next day it's like, God, that was a horrible workout. Maybe it's with your diet. Maybe it's in your career, with parenting. I have 2 young kids and I see every single day, I'm like, man, this was a good day. And then that night it's like the worst bedtime routine ever. And then the next day, horrible day, but then bedtime is like a breeze. It's just like, it can never get it right. So that's how this is. This is part of life. So just understanding that, showing yourself some love and grace as you're going through this process is going to be huge. So, as you guys know, there are so many sobriety focused programs out there. AA is probably the number one thing everyone thinks of when it comes to sobriety, right? I'm not even going to get into that. Just look up whatever you want around that. This is not again, I do not want this to be a bash session at all. From all the statistics that I have seen, AA is great for white males. I'll leave it at that. There are a bunch of other programs out there that are very sobriety focused. As you're going and looking into these programs, read between the lines. I have gotten very good at it because of what I do, obviously, for a living, but I have seen so many and get clients all the time from programs who say, are you looking to cut back? Do you want to drink less? Are you sober curious? Come and we can help you do just that. But as soon as you get in the door, it is sobriety focused. It is telling you need to take off the next 30 days. Maybe it's 30, 60, 90. Maybe it's the next year. I've seen it all over the board. What I have found with that approach, it does not work for most people. It can be, one, very triggering if you haven't all dealt with the all or nothing black or white mentality, especially when it comes to dieting, for example. For me, it was always, all right, diet starts Monday, so what am I gonna do up until Monday? I'm gonna binge because I'm never gonna have it again, right? And I see that come out so much with people with drinking. Okay, I'm gonna start cutting back. This week doesn't work because I have this happy hour, I have a work thing, then I have, a party, and then, this weekend isn't gonna work. So we'll start on Monday. So what happens between now and Monday? Go. It is mind-boggling to me. Then you have things like Dry January and Sober October and all these different things that are essentially the same thing. It's almost like Lent. People give up something for 40 days. As soon as they bring it back in, almost every single time, they are making up for lost time, at least for that introductory period. Or the introduction goes good and then they ramp up very fast back to their old habits. Again, I'm not knocking on any of those things. Some people have found success. Any reduction in alcohol consumption and other things, bad habits that you're trying to change are all good. My whole thing is, how can we do this in a way that is going to give you long-term results and be something you can stick with long-term? Anyone who is listening who has ever been on a diet has probably dealt with yo-yo dieting culture, right? It sucks. It sucks financially because you're spending money not only on whatever program you're doing, but then you're losing weight and then you're gaining weight. You're buying all these products to help you lose weight, and then, new clothes, and then you gain the weight back, and it's this whole vicious cycle. The reason why is this all or nothing mentality is not good for nearly all of us. That is why almost every diet does not have a success rate. You cannot say that, this diet is 100% success rate, unless it's, people who commit for the 30 days, but then when you look at a year, 6 years, 10 years out, there's no data. Because when it is so cutthroat, it is very hard to keep that data for long term because people don't stick with it that long because it's not realistic. So my whole approach is, how can we do this in sip-sized chunks so that you can make these realistic habit changes that can stick with you long term? So you're not on this huge roller coaster. Yeah, you still might have some bumps here and there, but it's not the drastic, like, holy shit, what am I doing type pattern that, if you're like me, you've seen a lot in your life. The reason why I'm bringing up all these other programs is I feel like, from what I've seen personally in my own experience, and then again, clients who have come to me, is it doesn't feel authentic in the sense that the programs are saying that they can help you cut back, but then as soon as you're in the door, it is very shaming if you decide you don't want to be sober, you don't want to cut back entirely, right? When we face things with shame, it is going to lead to nothing but shame spirals. That is literally why my program is called ShameOver, because the shame, we leave that shit at the door. All of life, you're gonna have highs and lows. It is understanding why you behave the way you do, why you think the way you do, the beliefs that you have around things, including alcohol, including food, including all these different things, even ourselves, our bodies, our minds, other people, the judgments that we have. We're human, it's gonna happen. The more that we understand these, the more we can get a grip on it. So no, it's not using willpower. That's not what I'm talking about by grip. But when you have this self-awareness and this understanding, you are so unbelievably powerful because you know yourself so well. You have the foresight to be able to keep yourself from going down that rabbit hole, from jumping off the wagon or falling off the wagon, whichever term you like. You're able to maintain balance in so many different areas. There's been a rise of quit literature is another term for it, but all the books about basically people's journeys and how they got to where they are, and basically how detrimental alcohol was for them. I've read a great deal of them. Just like with everything, I'd say take it with a grain of salt in a sense, but there are so many great things you can learn from those. So definitely read those, see what you can learn from other people's experiences. But again, realize all of this our own personal journey, and it's going to look different. I right now probably couldn't write too great of a book because I never had those rock bottom moments. But I'm here because I never wanted to have a rock bottom moment, to need to change, to feel the need that like, oh, I should probably get my shit together. I never wanted it to get there, and I don't want any of you to get there either. I never want you guys to be able to write a book because your life had got so messed up that the only way out was to go entirely sober. On that note, I don't know a single person who is sober that does not say that their life isn't better since getting rid of alcohol entirely. And that's amazing. Again, I am so all for whatever path you decide. My only hope for you is that it is your decision that you are making for you. Everyone else benefits when you're doing what's best for you. That's all just cherries. If you are doing what's best for you, it is going to be ultimately what's best for everyone. And the people who it's not best for, that's probably an area where boundaries need to be set anyway. So, as you're starting this process, it's really understanding, again, what does moderation look like to you? What do you want out of your relationship with alcohol? What are you getting out of it? What do you want it to look like ultimately? I know one thing for me, I always, I was the first to buy the towels or send the funnies or, like I always had a glass of wine in my hand. Like, I wasn't like Erica Miss drunker scent all the time, but I love my wine. I did not want my daughter to like be able to look back and see me with a glass of wine in my hand. Like that was just correlated, like mom, wine. That was something that mattered to me. Have it be personal for you. If you still think the wine things are funny, that's fine. I'm not again bashing on that. But all of this culture, this mommy wine, all of this plays a role in our heads that ultimately impacts how we think about ourselves, how we think about alcohol, how we think about other people and their relationship with alcohol. And it makes it harder to sometimes set those clear boundaries because we don't even know where to draw the line in the sand. One of the biggest things for me with this all or nothing approach, not only was, again, it was very triggering for me myself, just knowing that, diet starts Monday, so I'm going to binge all the way up to Monday, even though that's not what I thought in my head. That's what was going on behind the scenes and the actions that I was doing. So then I would start with even a heavier weight than I was at, and, it just didn't end well. There is actually a psychological reason for this, and it is all based on our genetics and why we still exist today. As you guys know, our ancestors from years and years and years and years, they were fight or flight mode a lot. They were hunting and gathering, and they had to pay attention constantly to what was going on around them, where their next meal was coming from, when they were going to be able to get food, water, shelter, all of these things that for most of us, we don't typically have to worry about, at least not obviously to that degree. Because of that, that has been passed through our genetics throughout history. When we have that all or nothing mentality and approach, it is impossible for us subconsciously not to have that in our brains. And what that does to our body is it kind of sends us in that fight or flight. And that is why you are seeing yourself binge. If you know, like, oh, I can only have 2 today, I'm not going to drink it all tomorrow. And then you end up having 4, 5, 8 today. It's because that mindset was, I can't have any outside of this. As soon as you put those harsh limits up, that's like never going to happen again, even if it is like not until like 3 days from now, it still does that. So that is where really working on this relationship with yourself, your understanding, your beliefs is going to be so powerful for you. But more than powerful, it is going to be empowering, right? And that is my wish for everyone, is to feel empowered, because that's exactly what this is. When you drink, it is a decision you make. You are not powerless. You are powerful, and you are empowered to make that decision. So when you have a drink, make sure it is your choice. Do it mindfully so that you are fully in the moment. You are enjoying the buzz that you're getting, the taste, the senses that you're experiencing from it. Make it part of the experience because that's what you're doing it for. If you are literally just drinking because it's a day that ends in Y, or every time that you drink, the whole goal is to essentially get shit-faced, then yes, I would say you definitely need to take a break, take a step back, and really understand where you're at and if moderation is possible for you. If that is not the case for you though, moderation is looking like a much better possibility because you already have those boundaries that you can set intentionally or subconsciously. So if you notice yourself going through any of these cycles with I'm doing really good, having a bad week, having a good week, having a bad week, really look into it and see, am I on this all or nothing cycle? Am I putting hard boundaries on and shaming myself if I go over? How am I approaching it? What feelings is it bringing up in me? Because a lot of times when we do put those hard, fast rules, it can make us want to self-sabotage and fight back. And I hear so often from my clients, like, but I want it. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to think, I don't want to feel, I don't want to, right? What is that really about? What are you trying to, is it that you truly don't want to feel? You need to numb out, you need to take the pain away, you need to take the stress or the anxiety away? Is it that you need a sense of control and you feel like you have no other control? Is it that you're running on empty and literally nothing but fumes, that it is the one moment that you've taken for yourself that day or that week, and this glass represents to yourself, likely subconsciously, that you matter and you deserve a break? I can say yes to all of those. I've been there, I've seen it, I totally get it. The biggest thing for you to understand with this is, how can you approach this with a very open mind and lose the judgment? Try to stay neutral. If you need to, imagine that it was your best friend going through the situation, or you're the one going through the situation, and what would your best friend say to you, right? Sometimes we really need that outside perspective, or to take ourselves out of it so we're not so close, so it's not so personal. It doesn't feel like the attack and that I'm failing at everything. I'm clearly failing at this too. Like, and on that note, how are you talking to yourself? As we're going through this, if you notice yourself talking negatively, stop that immediately and don't go, God, here I go again. And you're just piling it on. Just stop, be like, yeah, that's nice, not correct, moving on, right? It sounds silly, but when we're listening to how we're talking about ourselves, that is how our brain believes that basically how much we're worth is how we're talking to ourselves and about ourselves. It's also how we teach other people how to love us, is how we're loving ourselves. And I know that, for some of you that might be a total eye roll, and that's okay. If you're not into that, that's fine. This probably isn't for you anyway. But so much of this comes down to how we feel about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves, and how at the end of the day, we accept ourselves exactly how we are. This does not mean letting yourself off the hook anytime that you're like, oh, well, I wasn't going to drink today, but I am. Oops. Like, that's not it. And I think you know that. But in case I need to elaborate, that is not the case. This is all about showing yourself love and grace and compassion, just like you would to someone that you really loved and cared about. But a lot of times, especially women, we are not giving ourselves that same respect or that same appreciation. So really, what can you do to break through that negative mindset, that negative approach and really treat yourself like you would someone that you loved more than anything. Because guess what? You should be number one on the list of people that you love. And it's very hard. I keep myself off that list often, so I am a work in progress, just like all of you guys. But it truly does make a difference at the end of the day for how this all works. As you're going through this process, again, understand, yes, all of our journeys are going to be different. One of the hardest things is it is everywhere. Alcohol is everywhere. It doesn't, even at a 2-year-old's birthday party, there's typically alcohol there, right? So this is a big part of our culture. And with that, you're going to possibly feel like an outsider. You're going to feel imposter syndrome, what am I doing? You might feel FOMO. More than anything, you're going to have these big feelings coming up that you're probably not used to because you've always drank when these feelings would come up. So you're not used to being in the situation without having that liquid courage. Be patient and just love yourself through it. We need to learn how to be more flexible and more adaptable and just try on different things and see what lifestyle fits best for us. And this could change depending on the season that you're in and the chapter that you're in. This can all change, and being okay with that. Again, that's the flexibility and the adaptability that we need to have. Moderation, again, decide exactly what it means to you, but how can you make yourself successful as you're going through this? So moderation is, in my mind, the avoidance of extremes. That's actually, I think, probably the definition of it. But there are no extremes. When you have moderation, you're much more on an even playing field. The bar is very balanced, right? That helps you not only maintain the control, but it keeps you from feeling the need to white knuckle it on the days that you're taking off. Or, when you decide okay, I'm only having 2, it helps you stay at that limit when you have that balanced, that mindful approach. This is kind of what I have coined moderation magic, okay? So when it comes to moderation, you're doing it right when you're getting the goods out of it, but not the negatives. So for me, I've gotten to a point to where I can drink if I want to, and if I don't, I never feel FOMO. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like, oh God, well, why can't I drink? Why can't I just do this? It's always a decision. It's always a choice. It's always for positive reasons. One of my personal rules is don't drink for negative emotions. That is when I personally know it is harder for me to maintain the balance. If it's negative emotions, it's more likely for me to not stay within my limits, to say that, oh, screw it, let's just have whatever. So that is one thing that I've learned for myself. If that is the case for you, just cut it out during negative emotions. You're going to realize very quickly how much you would typically turn to alcohol for a negative emotion. And I'm talking like angry, upset, emotional, sad, even bored. Even bored can be one of these. I think boredom is one of the main reasons why people drink. But again, understanding why you're drinking when you're drinking is going to be so huge. All of this really leads down to, are we being mindful? Are we checking in with ourselves? Are we in the moment? And what are we getting out of it? I will hear so often people are like, I just realized I'm not getting anything good out of it anymore. If that's the case, then yeah, that's a perfect time to be done or take a break. But you have to be mindful and aware and be checking in to even get to that point. So, as you guys are going through this journey, especially, yes, sobriety is going to bring a bunch of different benefits for you, but some of the specific ones that I want to focus on with moderation, overall health, that any reduction is going to be great. So whether you're cutting your alcohol consumption 10%, 50%, 90% like me, your health is going to notice a difference. Your sleep is going to notice a difference. Your skin, your bloatiness, especially for women as we're aging, like it's already hard enough to lose weight or to maintain our weight. And now we have this, not fun. So being able to use the reduction in alcohol consumption, it's going to help with all of that. There are even some studies, and I'm not, again, going to get into specifics because you can find a study for pretty much everything that you want. But moderation has shown improved heart health and improved longevity, even compared to some complete abstinence. So abstinence, again, can be amazing. It is not the only option for most of us, okay? So just hear that. If you have people that are pressuring you that is the only option out there, see if you can hear them out, have a conversation. But again, ultimately, it is 100% your decision. You need to be entirely on board, because if you're not, it doesn't matter what path you choose. It is not going to work out long term if you're not entirely on board. Drinking less is going to help with your mental health. Reducing anxiety, depression, oddly enough, these are reasons why we drink. I know for me, those were definite reasons why I drink. But when we are using alcohol and we have any anxiety or any depression, it's basically like a quick Band-Aid for a second that only reopens the wound as soon as it's in the process of coming out of your system, because that come down is actually worse for anxiety and depression. And there's literally a clinical term called anxiety, which is very factual. So check that out if you're not familiar with it. But basically, if you notice yourself the day after you drink, or, for the couple days after you've come out off of like vacation or a, big drinking weekend or something along those lines, it is actually your body getting rid of the alcohol and, all the toxins and everything in your system. And that is what increases the anxiety, and for some of us, depression as well. So any reduction in alcohol, again, regardless of what path you choose, is going to be better for your mental health. I would be curious, again, not a doctor here, but I'd be curious for if there are any studies on how alcohol, moderate use, very moderate use, how it can actually help with our mental health. Because sometimes getting that break, taking that pause, taking that moment is better for us than the white knuckling stress if that's all you're doing when you're not drinking. So again, no data on this, but I'd be very curious to see what that looks like. When we are drinking moderately, you very likely will notice a boost in your social connections. At first, it might feel like a dip because you're so used to constantly having a drink or several when you're in these settings. If I like to say start later, end earlier, as long as you're not making up in between, you're going to be better off. If you can go to the party a little bit later, people are already drinking. They're already feeling it. If you're not trying to play catch up and you're just nursing one or two drinks throughout the party, your social connection is going to be so much greater because you're present, you're there, you're with it, you're engaged. And as soon as people start to get annoying and you're like, okay, everyone's drunk, I'm not, I want to go, you got to get out there. It's literally the best thing. And you're going to sleep better. So huge. As we know, social connection is imperative for our mental health, our physical, emotional, all of that. So as you're going through this journey, the one thing that I typically recommend for nearly everyone, do not avoid social situations. That is what so many people do because they want to avoid the triggers and the temptations. That's called life. If you need to take a pause and take a step back momentarily, totally fine. You know what's best for you. You cannot do that forever. It is not going to be better for your mental health to avoid all social situations and just stay at home to avoid the temptation of drinking, because that's going to lead to so much more negative emotional and mental health things. So again, this is why balance is everything. Moderation magic is the most beautiful thing that you can find. You are going to be able to notice the difference when it comes to your personal growth. So whether there's something that you're working on or working toward, your confidence is going to increase. So many things happen when you're in this journey. And I truly believe it's the moment you decide to choose you. Because when you are choosing you, when you are doing all of this because you matter and you are number one and everybody else just benefits and everyone else is just cherries, that is when everything falls in place. So when people will say, ever since I've been sober, my life has been so much better. And yeah, it doesn't mean that they don't go through hard things. Absolutely. They just handle it better. They feel the feels and then they move on rather than drinking them, never dealing with them, and then they come out typically when we've overdrank, then that's when everything comes out, right? This is where, when you are working on this, when you are doing this work, the inner growth, the understanding, and most of all, the acceptance, that is where all this magic comes from, because you are learning about yourself and you can't change anything that you're not aware of. So again, it doesn't matter what path you choose. This is what's going to help you to see that personal growth, to have the confidence for anything that you want, that you know you deserve, or that you've thought about. If there's been something in the back of your mind that you need to be doing, this will help you have the confidence to do it, to go after it, to feel empowered, because you are already doing small things that are hard, and that leads to sustainable change, long-term growth, and overall better happiness, joy, fulfillment, passion, purpose, pleasure, everything. It is ultimately the best way to have that positive impact on your life in general. So some of the, what do I want to call it? Some common myths that I've heard when it comes to moderation is it's just controlled drinking, or which, yeah, it is kind of controlled drinking, but I'll hear people say it's a lack of discipline. I can tell you from personal experience, not drinking is a hell of a lot easier than drinking in moderation when you've been that gray area drinker. Once you learn how to do it, once you've done the work, not the case. But in the beginning, it is so much easier not to drink. Why? That's a choice. You make the choice, you're done. When you're drinking, it is changing the chemicals in your body and your brain to make you turn off those sensors, to make you want more, to make you want to keep drinking. That is alcohol doing its job. So it is a hell of a lot harder to drink in moderation than it is to not drink at all. So one, I want you to understand that. So that's where a lot of people, sobriety is a lot easier. And especially at certain times, sometimes you do need that. For me, why I brought up earlier, when I'm having an emotional time or, negative times, I'm not drinking, because those are the times that I know it is harder for me to just stop at my 1 or 2 or 3 on certain given days. That's okay. I know myself well enough. That's a guardrail. That's a boundary that I've set, and it works. Okay? So again, this is all ultimately about awareness and understanding of yourself. If you do, I'm not saying sobriety is the easy way out. It kind of is. For certain people, it is. And I mean that with full respect. I really hope that you guys do know that. I do not want to make light of the situation at all. I have done sobriety, and I personally took a year off. Granted, I was pregnant for, a lot of that time. But I'm so glad I did it. And yeah, it was the easy way out in the sense that I was pregnant for obviously a good portion of that time period, but I decided to go, basically I did it the whole year, found out we were pregnant on New Year's Eve, so that made it easy. Had the baby first week of September. So I had all of September, October, November, December, 4 months that I could have, easily started drinking again. I chose not to. More than anything, because I wanted to try it for myself and see what it was like. And, I had already made whatever time period. And I'm glad I did. Bringing alcohol back into my life has been easy because I did the work, because I know myself, I know what works, I know what doesn't. I'm curious about how things make me feel, how long it takes for me to start feeling things, where I feel it, when I feel it, what makes me feel one way, wine versus hard liquor versus beer, all completely different. So understanding this, that is all part of the growth mindset. And again, the mindfulness piece. So if you want that moderation magic, it is all about the mindfulness. As you're going through this process, check in with yourself, number one. That is how you're going to really understand where you're at, where you're going, if you're stepping forward, if you're stepping back, how that looks. You need to do that. Otherwise, you're just literally, it's easy to feel like you're, going backwards or not making progress because you don't even have clear goals set or boundaries that you need to put in place. Journaling can really help you process these things. Talking to anyone trusted, whether it's a therapist, a friend, as long as it's a supportive, like-minded person that you can have these conversations with, it's going to be good. Journaling, again, can be the best thing. Whether you have the resources or the support group or not, you can find so much while you're journaling. You're going to find awesome podcasts out there, not so awesome podcasts. Hopefully mine's on the semi-awesome list for you. Quitlet, you're going to find some great information there. Remember, take everything with a grain of salt, even everything that I'm saying. Like, find something that works for you and try that. Everything that I'm doing is not going to work for you. Everything that you're doing is not going to work for me. That is why we are all in a different place and why this is such a different journey for all of us and why moderation looks different for all of us. So I encourage you to figure out different tools that work for you, try them out, see when things work, when they don't. But the biggest thing is to remember that it is all about mindful drinking. I truly believe that moderation, that sobriety can coexist, and that for some people, they are able to go between sobriety and find that moderation piece again. For me, my heart of heart truly believes that is if you do the work. If you know yourself and you make that decision that I truly can moderate, that is it. If you believe you can, you're right. If you believe you can't, you're right. Where is your mindset at? Where do you think you are on this spectrum? I had a call today where at least two, if not three of the ladies had all said that their mindset has shifted recently, where they feel like they see themselves as someone who can moderate. As long as you don't have that belief, you're never going to be able to, because the self-sabotage is going to be constantly coming in. The doubt, the shame, all of that shit. Once you believe, like, this is who I know I can be, and I'm going to prove myself to it, you will. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. There's no such thing as this perfection thing that we're all striving for. The whole focus is how can you make progress? And a lot of the progress, even with the steps back, if you are learning more about yourself, if you are growing, that's progress. That is growth. And that is the only way that you're going to be able to keep getting better, to keep evolving as you're going through this. So as I close, I just want to hammer home again that this is an individual journey that is unique for each and every one of us. And you need to be able to do this journey while finding the support, the encouragement, the empowerment that you need, without the shame and guilt. And this is including from yourself. You need the empowerment, the encouragement, and support from yourself without the shame or the guilt from yourself as well. If you have people on top of that to add to that, it is not only going to make it a hell of a lot easier, but way more fun as well. So find that community, that squad, that group, whatever that looks like to you. Have a heart-to-heart with yourself and really understand, is moderation for me? Is it something that I know that I can work towards? If the answer is no, at least not right now, respect that. Don't fight it. Again, our body and our brains are telling us constantly what we want, what it needs. Think of, I had heard this analogy earlier this week and it was just like, phew. Essentially, we are all soda bottles, right? Every time you shake us up, that's the emotions. If we don't have an emotional release and you just keep shaking, there is going to be a mountain of explosion. In my mind, moderation makes that so much more balanced so that you can you get those releases, you get the things that you're wanting out of your time with alcohol, because it's always in a moderate way. It's never too high leading to too low at the end. Spend some time to really have this heart-to-heart with yourself and to listen. That's again part of the mindfulness piece. As you guys are reflecting on your relationship, it is going to be very hard not to look at other people, not to maybe be a little bit more judgmental when it comes to others and their relationships with alcohol or with other things. As soon as you catch yourself doing that, just stop. Tell yourself nobody needs that, including you, and just stop. There are so many ways for you to get support and for you to understand what you want this journey to look like. And again, what is alcohol bringing into your life? If it is nothing but negative things, then yeah, take the break, try this sobriety thing, whatever that looks like for you. I've gotten to the point to where yeah, I definitely could be sober the rest of my life if I wanted. That's not something that I want, but it is a choice. Again, that choice piece, it is so empowering. For me, if I know that I were to say yep, I'm sober, that is so definitive that it just makes me want to self-sabotage. What's the point in that? Know yourself well enough to know, where are you in this? Because of that, I know that I can easily drink when I want, not when I don't, right? Where are you with it, and what work are you doing to improve this relationship, to understand it, and again, to accept yourself exactly how you are. If you can't accept yourself how you are, all this work that you're doing is going to come undone at some point or another, because you need to know that you are loved and worthy as you are in this moment. Getting better, that's great. That is awesome. And yes, you're still going to be worthy and loved and everything good then as well. But you are in this moment too. So with that, please feel free to check out ShameOver. We have a beautiful community of the most incredible women I have ever had the privilege of knowing and doing this life with. So if that's at all of interest, please feel free to reach out. You can go to shameover.me. So many different ways to get involved, to connect. Tons of amazing organizations out there. If you are looking for something that does focus on moderation, that is not ShameOver, moderation management, could not give them more shout outs. They are an incredible organization, so definitely check them out. The biggest thing is, again, just no matter who it is, what it is, including myself, take everything with a grain of salt and just check in with yourself. You know what's best for you. You are going to be more successful when you are doing what's best for number one. When you have a coach, when you have like-minded people supporting and empowering you, it's going to make it that much easier, more fun, and your chances of long-term success are just going to go through the roof. But again, it has to be for you more than anything. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and hope to see you here again. Please feel free to like, to comment, to share. Anything that you do to increase engagement on this is only going to help me know that you guys not only like this, but continue to grow and help more people every day. So with that, thank you for being here. Most of all, for showing up for yourself. You deserve it. You are worth it. Your future self thanks you. And we'll see you next time.